Ruud, you are the curator of the fantastic Steichen exhibition in Arles.
Thank you.
So what was your aim with this exhibition?
Well, I think to present an aspect of Steichen's work and character, part of his persona, that has been present in his oeuvre, but really under the radar. I think in recent years there has been much more interest for nature in general, but also in Steichen's work, and that it was such an important part of his life, that even as important to him as his art, working with and in nature, I think until now was not really that much that well known or appreciated. So to him, cultivating flowers, being in nature was an essential part of his being, and without it he could not have been an artist. And so they are actually two complementary aspects that have defined him over the years. And I hope in this exhibition this will become clear that it was so important to him.
But we know, first what we know, what is the most famous work from Steichen is the pond, right?
Sorry,
the pond.
Which
is a view by night in the nature.
Yes.
So we know him because of that, right?
Yes, first. but this interest in nature stays with him until the very end of his life. So from the very beginning to the very end. And what we often forget is that Edward Steichen started as a painter. He was trained as a painter and painted subjects that he found interesting. And when this relatively new medium of photography comes into his life by the end of the 19th century, he wants to experiment and to investigate what you can do with photography that you perhaps cannot do with painting. So he's making photographs and paintings of the same subjects.
But you begin the show with a small painting, which really look like a photo, right?
Yes, that's the very reason why I did this, is to show this, that he was really investigating his subjects and trying to paint with his camera, and it almost has the same composition and the same reflection of the moon in the water as the famous photograph.
And when was it painted?
The painting was done in, I think, 1906, so also in the same...
parallel time.
Parallel time. And it's actually, I bought it for the museum at an auction in Chicago, public auction, only like 4 months ago. It's the very first painting to enter the public Luxembourgish collections. And it's a great work, I think, because it's so small. It has the size of a photograph, and it has such a direct link to his pictorialist, this early photography, that it both illustrates his beginning as a painter, but also what he was trying to do as a photographer at about the same time.
So he kept on for some time to paint and to do photos.
Yeah. I would say until the early 20s. In 1922, he decided for himself that, he was an okay painter and he did some really nice works, but he was never going to be Picasso. But he was going to be one of the greatest photographers of all time.
And he knew that.
He had a lot of success already at that time.
Doing what?
Making photographs of famous Hollywood actors and actresses, Greta Garbo, Marlene Dietrich, Thomas Mann, the writer. So everybody who had aspirations, who was arrivé or wanted to become somebody, wanted his or her portfolio photographed by Steichen.
But it's very far from the romantic landscape, right?
Yes, but he did also that. He was also photographing at that time landscapes and pastures, but not so much painting anymore. And then he decided he wanted to control his legacy. He took every painting that he had himself to his garden in Voulangis, and he burned everything. He destroyed everything. There are about 90 paintings that he had already sold before or given to friends, and we know they exist. So there's a nice group of paintings, but He wanted his legacy to be that of a great photographer. And
So he became a great photographer in fashion, right?
fashion,
And celebrities.
fashion and celebrities, but also he was one of the first to do advertisement campaigns. He was a war photographer. He was the commander of the American forces in the First World War, and also worked in the Second World War on the Navy. So he was really employed by the Americans to photograph the war zones and to document the impact of bombardments, which was a horrific thing to do. He also felt bad about it after the war, that such destruction, in the First World War. Of course, this is not really. These photos are not meant as artworks because they are made for military purposes, but it did help him to perfect his technique, because those photos didn't need to be romantic or vague, but sharp and precise. They were for documentary purposes, but it helped him to refine his technique and helped him actually on his way from this pictorialist photography to realistic, very much precise and more defined photography.
And after the Second World War, he became curator for photography at MoMA, which is very peculiar too. He has a very complex career, right?
Yes, yeah. I think for 40 years he worked as a curator and the director of the photography department in MoMA. Also there he was very innovative. Steichen, I think, has always been a networker. And as you know too, in our profession, in art history, in art, networking is very important. You have to know the gallerists, the collectors.
We need to improve.
We need to improve, but we can take lessons from Steichen, because he was really, he was the one, also, we sometimes forget, who launched the career of Lee Miller, of Dorothea Lange, of Diane Arbus, all
women,
really great female photographers, and that was not normal at that time. But he just was looking at quality, he saw their work, and he was really helping their career. And also the exhibition of the Family of Men in 1955, he was inviting 187, I think, different photographers.
But he kept on doing photos.
He kept on doing photos.
And the last part of the exhibition is about the mix of personal photos and nature.
Yes. Well, that is partly because a big part of the donation that we received in Luxembourg, the Luxembourg state, comes from the private holdings of the Steichen family. So there are a lot of private photographs of Steichen and his daughters or his wife, personal photos that document his personal life, and photos of friends, subjects that he was very attached to. So it also explains. I chosen those photographs also because they tell us something about his nature, his character, and
what was his character?
Very inquisitive, very experimental.
Really?
Yeah. He always wanted to push to the limits to search for perfection in everything. So when he was breeding or hybriding delphiniums, which were their favorite flowers, he wanted to create the ultimate delphinium, the largest one, the most purple or the most blue one. And also in photography, he really wanted to do something extraordinary. So following one tree, the Shadbow tree, that was planted in his back garden in Reading, Connecticut. He followed that tree for 6 years, photographing it in all seasons, in all circumstances. And when he felt he couldn't investigate more, he started filming it. And this film was never digitized, but we managed through MoMA to get a copy of this film digitized, and are not showing it in Arles in the exhibition for the very first time. So it's a world premiere, and it perfectly complements the selection of the photographs that he took from the Shadbow tree, really showing his commitment to find the the essence of his subject.
And how is the end of his life, photography-wise?
I think he kept on photographing until I think 3 years before he actually died. There's one photograph that shows him in a pink suit, photographed by Bruce Davidson at the entrance of the exhibition. He's in full Woodstock mode. It is pink costume, walking in his garden, very much involved in nature. I think by the end of his life, his interest was equally divided, really, between his flowers and the natural environment where he was living, and his history as a photographer. I think he could look back on a very rich and very life that spans almost the entire history of photography itself. If you follow the oeuvre of Edward Steichen, you basically follow the history of photography. And in the year where France is celebrating the 200-year anniversary of the birth of photography, I think this is also a very appropriate exhibition, because through Steichen and through his changing depiction and use of nature in his work, you can follow these developments from pictorialism to real photography to documentary to color photography. It's all in there, and so there's a very nice coincidence.
Merci.